Welcome to the Meat Dudes. We are meat obsessed, Wagyu focused, source driven, and barbecue influenced. And I just wanted to lead into this interview. We had such a great interview with Desi Cecali of Triple Crown Steak Challenge. Now, I really want you guys to listen to this whole interview. She just dives deep into the food industry. We talk a ton about Wagyu. We talk a ton about her Triple Crown Challenge, her steak challenge, with so much research behind it. So she is this super researcher, influencer of Wagyu, and it was such a great conversation. So I want to make sure you guys listen to this whole thing. She's going to be a great friend of the show, and we're going to get a lot of great statistics from her that really prove how the health benefits of Wagyu beef and so many other good things and bad things about the food industry. So I'm just so excited. I just wanted to lead into this, and I hope you guys enjoy it. So stick around. It's about an hour long, and it's just such a great interview. All right, let's go. All right, welcome to the Meat Dudes. I am so excited today. We are here with Desi Cecali of Triple Crown Steak Challenge. Desi, how are you doing?
Wonderful. And I'm so glad to be on your program, your podcast. This is amazing. I'm
Oh, I
happy.
love
I know we have so much we can talk about. It's
I
great.
know there's no shortage of beef topics today. And I'm really excited to have you though, because so many people have told me to talk to you. They're like, you got to talk to Desi. She has so much data on Wagyu beef. She's been studying and researching Wagyu beef for so long that she has all this data that you don't see a lot in the industry. And it's one thing that, the industry really needs, because there's so many people who don't trust or believe what's really happening with Wagyu. So we'll say something and they're like, no, that's false. And I'm like, well, actually, now we have somebody on who has a lot of data, and we can talk about that. So I
Great.
guess, yeah, introduce yourself. Talk about what you've done in the last few years, and all the data that you have.
Well, I've been researching Wagyu beef. I've actually, put together researchers to prove the health benefits and the quality of Wagyu beef. And early on, I went to Japan and I studied under Dr. Kiego Kuchida, who is the person that invented the carcass camera for grading beef. And what I found was Wagyu beef, the USDA grading system really leaves Wagyu beef out. And I'm talking about percentage as well, because, prime just goes so far, and most percentage Wagyu and Wagyu go way over prime. And there just was nothing there to help breeders to show the quality of the carcasses they were producing. So, I wanted to bring that camera here and get that going and help grade beef so the consumer could actually understand the quality of the carcass they were buying. And then I got really excited and I said, well, now we got to prove the tenderness, because Wagyu beef was so much more tender than regular commercial cattle. And so I said, let's start a challenge, the Triple Crown Steak Challenge. But I didn't want to go on taste alone, because taste is just one factor of a Wagyu ribeye. And so I wanted to do tenderness using the Warner Bratzler shear force test, which is the breed standard in universities. And the way that works is it mimics. It's like a guillotine where you put a piece of meat in it, and it actually mimics the bite of a person that would bite down on a piece of meat. And so it measures the force of that bite compared to a human being's, first bite of a piece of meat. And it does an average. It's not just one. You'll have a whole steak and you'll punch out, certain portions of the steak, so you get an overall average of the tenderness of that steak. And it's an amazing way to, qualify a steak's tenderness rate. That's just one portion of it. And then we take the steak and we do a fatty acid profile, which the fatty acid profile is for measuring the healthiness of beef, the healthy fats, the good ones, the MUFAs and the trans fats that are good. And it is just amazing the way they do that analytically, scientifically proving that Wagyu beef is heart healthy. And even our test, I've been doing this for 7 years at different universities across the U.S. And our tests are showing that Wagyu beef is heart healthy. And this year we're going to do it at UC Davis, and we are going to publish the results. And I talked to Pam, who's leading up the fatty acid testing, and some of the previous collections we've had through the Triple Crown are showing that it's even more healthy than olive oil or avocado oil for the fat. So, I mean, and then, we'll get into the professional taste panel, but I'll let you ask me. So I could just roll for 2 hours.
No, I can't wait to see those results. I
I
really want to see those results because I want to just post them right here in our
know.
butcher shop. So when people say, "Oh, actually, no, I don't think that's healthy," we can say, "Actually, yes, this is the facts. This is the studies."
And
And
I'd like to get you on our professional taste panel,
we accept.
Yes, they'll say, well, I have to get okayed from the
Yes,
university, but
please.
I know they will because, it'll just be great to have somebody like you that loves beef and knows beef and knows the taste and flavor of beef. And when you start judging flavor profiles, I think in a professional environment, it's going to be a lot different than what you're used to just cutting a piece of meat and eating it because they're very serious about, the test. And when they cook the meat, for instance, in the first place, you're going to go into a room where you're in your own little isolated stall.
This is for the triple crown, right?
With the
This is
Triple Crown, yes, for the
good.
taste
Okay.
assessment, the professional taste panel. And you are going to get a list. They're going to train you ahead of time, and you're going to get a list of flavor profiles like um, what you notice when you eat meat, the first time you put it in your mouth, how what is that flavor sitting on your tongue? What that burst of flavor, that first flavor, and then you're also going to be conscientious about how long that flavor lasts, which we call sustained flavor. And also, if it's a buttery texture, if it's a beefy flavor, how juicy it is, how it just really melts in your mouth. And you're going to rate that against other pieces of meat of the same size. And I mean, it comes through a chute. I mean, little door opens and they push it to you, and the lighting inside the testing area is red so that you can't look at it and it be desirable. It's a kind of a gray color. All the meat looks the same. So the way it looks won't affect you, just the flavor of it. And the most important thing when they cook this to determine the winner is you don't want to cook the steak side by side where the fat from one steak can be, melded into the second steak. They cook them on a rack alone by themselves where the fat drops down and it's just that particular steak. You're only going to get that particular steak's flavor. They're not going to be cooked together on a griddle or, grilled together. I mean, it's going to be a very, very scientific objective, and, they're going to really analyze that. So,
Because we know fat is flavor,
yeah,
so we want to make sure that
this
we're
flavor.
just getting that one steak.
Right. And then the thing about using the carcass camera is that the camera measures the fat and can even measure fat smaller than a short grain of rice. And you know how small that is. So a little speck of fat, it measures it and calculates it. And so the smaller specks that you see in meat, of course, you've seen meat laid out side by side. The ones with the smaller specks, which we call fine marbling, those are usually the tastier steaks because the flavors melded in with the meat, and when you taste it, it just kind of melts. Whereas fat that is larger, which we call coarse fat, that's going to give you a kind of a too much at one time burst. It's not going to really meld with the flavor of the meat. So the smaller flecks of fat, and so we say that fineness of marbling is really a desirable characteristic for meat to have, so we measure that.
So what is that mostly going to be genetics, or is that going to be feed, do you think?
Well, there's two schools of thought on that, and I'm going to go with what Japan taught me. And Kyogo-san believes that a lot of it is genetics, but it also, you cannot discount the enormous contribution that the quality of feed makes to that, the timing of the feed, the feed, and there's a lot of things that we gather as well. So not only do we know where that steak came from because everything is DNA verified that enters our contest, but we know what percentage it is, whether it's 100% or it is another percentage animal. But we also know the days on feed, the age at harvest, all of these things contribute to that carcass. So all of that is taken into consideration in the Triple Crown. So when you get your data back, you can see that yours was on feed maybe 250 days, and this one was on feed 300 days. And then you get all this data back, and you can see, did this one have as good a fatty acid profile? Did it rate as well in the taste? Did it, what is my just my euphoria point on raising these cattle, to get the best carcass? But we have to discuss as well, people that raise these Wagyu, and most of the people that send into the Triple Crown are very conscientious breeders. And so most of those breeders have a lot invested into that carcass. And so if consumers want to know why they're paying more, it's because they're getting a product that is of extreme high quality. And this especially if you buy from Triple Crown breeders, they're tested and analyzed, and you are getting a piece of meat that is very high quality, where the breeder has fed it. I'm gonna say way more than commodity feed, or they haven't. I can guarantee you they haven't eaten ground up chicken litter that's dried and fed back to cattle, as some cattle are fed. You know. So,
I know we don't want to go scaring people about commercial beef, but we don't mind too much.
I'm not saying all beef are fed that.
No.
I'm saying this is a choice of
Yeah.
food, and um, ground up chicken feathers, and the same way with dog feed. I mean, let's be honest. Look at how people want to feed their dogs well. Well, it's the same thing with cattlemen. They want healthy cattle. Angus breeders as well. I mean, we take Angus into the Triple Crown, and I've seen really great Angus carcasses as well. I'm not just saying that Wagyu is the only breed that has a great product, but I'm saying without a doubt, and with 7 years of scientific research, that there is only, so far Angus go and commercial cattle go in their marbling, and that Wagyu, the breed itself, the they have that in their genetics to be able to express that fat in their meat better than other cattle. Wagyu do. So their meat is going to be a higher quality if it ranks, if they're fed right and they're cared for correctly. But I have had Angus, and I will just be very truthful, that have tested and been above some commercial, some F1 cattle. I mean, they've been up there, Angus have. But I'm just saying that certain breeds only have the ability to go so high in their marbling content.
And like you said, with Wagyu, you're starting with a better foundation. You're starting already with a higher foundation, a higher ceiling, in most cases.
Yes, well, they were bred for carcass quality, and their fat is a different composition, which gives them the ability to have a healthier fat. And, in this day and age, healthy fats, heart healthy fats, especially which Wagyu are, is very important to take into consideration when you're wanting a good quality, a beef eating experience. The healthiness is very important. And I can say that we have proved that 7 years of research, that Wagyu beef does have healthier fats. So,
And that's I love that. And since you've been to Japan and you've studied over there as well and seen the Japanese Wagyu cattle versus the American Wagyu cattle. And so I want to ask you this. I think it's really interesting that people think that it's they're sickly. Like that's the trend right now on TikTok and on Instagram and all over social media is that these Wagyu cattle are sick, and that's why they have so much intramuscular fat, and that's why they look the way they do, and that it's we get comments like that all the time. Oh, that's a very unhealthy obese animal. What do you have to say about that?
okay, so when you're saying sickly, do you mean that when they're young, or they look skinnier than regular cattle, or what is the definition of sickly?
I think that they're not even talking about the cattle, they're talking about the
The-
steaks, all of the intramuscular marbling inside of the steak, that the cow must have been obese and sickly because there's no other way to get that
Well,
that
that's from somebody that really doesn't understand carcass quality. And so, you know what? We're here to help them understand where that's coming from. And the marbling, like I just reiterated, the Wagyu have uh, their genetics allow them to produce this special fine marbling in the beef, which acts as a flavor enhancer. So what we need to understand is that Wagyu has a lower melting point of fat than regular meat. So when this fat is in the steak, and you'll notice this, I know you've noticed it when you're cooking it. So a Wagyu fat may look like you're going to have a lot of fat in that pan when the meat cooks, but actually it's not, because when it melts, it bathes that meat in that buttery flavor, and kind of evaporates, because that's the different kind of fat it is. It isn't like a fat you can really render and get a lot of fat back out of. It's a very delicious buttery fat. And so when you cook it, you'll notice when you look at the steak, the fat's disappeared, all those little dots are gone. So all those people that think that that's going to be like what they're used to eating, it's not, because the fat's going to disappear and you're going to have a delicious, succulent, juicy steak because of that fat. And it's going to bathe it. So many people throw butter on steaks to, keep it from being dry. You don't have to do that with Wagyu. That's exactly what that IMF, intermuscular fat, in that steak is for. So if you see that, you better buy it. And if you think it's sick, it is when you eat it. And you're going to say, wow, this is sick. It's great. The other definition is
um,
greatness. It's the quality of greatness with that fine, sparkling essence. So that's the difference. Is the melting point is lower. What has a higher melting point, the melting point's lower in other fats. So they just kind of, but make a lot of grease in the pan, but Wagyu doesn't do that. And I know
There's
you
no
know that from cooking hamburger meat, Wagyu burgers. I mean, there isn't much fat in the pan or on the grill or on, the griddle at all because it's all in the meat, bathing the meat for flavor.
bathed meat. I
Bathing
like that.
that meat with flavor.
Well, since Wagyu means Japanese cow,
Yeah.
what is the difference between Japanese Wagyu and American Wagyu, in
Oh,
your word?
okay.
Hmm.
American Wagyu, I tell you, there's nothing better than USA beef, be it Wagyu or Angus or commercial cattle. I can tell you that right now from the studies. And the reason is, uh, in the U.S., we have such a variety of grains and forages for our animals to eat that are so healthy that Japan does not have. They don't have the um, large space to graze cattle for cattle to forage. They don't have large areas to get different kinds of, haylage and or to cut these wonderful varieties of hay that we grow that are tested for nutritional value. We have very nutritious forage here in the U.S. And so, I mean, I have eaten Japanese beef. This is a personal opinion, my own, and I've eaten a lot of beef and sampled a lot of beef, a lot of meat. And when I eat Japanese beef, it's delicious. It melts in my mouth, but the flavor profile just isn't there like USA beef. I'm telling you. I can be prejudiced because this is where, I was brought up in the USA and I'm used to USA beef flavors. So it may be that that's what I love the most, but I'll tell you what, Japan sure is getting a lot of USA beef shipped over there and they love it. They have steakhouses now featuring USA beef. And I know you put one beside the other. I wish we could sample it right now, you and I. And we could do that at the Triple Crown if you want to. We'll get a piece from Japan, and we'll get a piece from the U.S., from the Triple Crown, and we'll taste it and we'll tell the actual. I mean, I'm going to say 99% that our meat is going to be way more flavorful. That good American beef flavor. And, yeah, that's I mean, come on, we got it over here. We have the grains, we have the forage, we have everything a rancher needs to make the highest quality carcass ever.
I love that answer, and I think I agree with you. We talk a lot about A5 because it's fancy and it looks crazy, but really, when I want to have a meal, I want a F1 cross or a purebred New York strip or a skirt steak, or I'll get my once in a while I'll go crazy and get a full blood of ribeye and split it with someone. But what I really enjoy about Wagyu beef, and what I think people don't understand is when we say Wagyu, they think A5. They think that's it.
Yeah.
You
Oh my God.
hate it. Blah. But there's so many levels, and that's what we love about it, right? There's so
Yeah.
many. You can find something for everyone.
And I do want to tell you there is something for everyone. So I have, my workers, they're cowboys. A couple of them are old time cowboys. Everybody over here is old. They're not up for that A5.
Yeah,
They
get
want
it.
that steak and they want that potato and they want a salad and they want to eat that steak with and now, okay, so you and I are different. I love the A5 because, I can get me a little bit of that steak and for me, it's a sensory experience.
It is. It's
I,
different.
I have people from the Triple Crown challenge. I mean, I buy beef from them, I'm like, please, I need some of that. I tasted it at the taste panel because what we do on the taste panel, on the professional taste panel, every piece of meat, you cut out. This is another thing I didn't say, but this is another reason it's very professional. Each piece is cut out from the same area every steak. They have a thing that cuts it out, every steak, the eye of that ribeye. They don't eat the spinalis, which for me, I love the spinalis, that outer edge of that ribeye that has all the luxurious marbling in it. Now, we cook those, and of course, after everybody that works on doing the taste panel and all, we cut that up, and that's for us to share with all the students. And I mean, we never have a problem. They wait in line for that taste panel to be over with. But it's a great part of that taste panel is getting that section out and testing. So very
Testing this.
important, yes, to test the same piece from each steak. Because you don't want to test the spinalis against the eye of the ribeye. It's a totally different flavor. So, yeah.
So let's stay on U.S. beef because I know we're very big fans of it and we chatted a lot about it. But let's talk about why people should eat U.S. beef, and then also talk about maybe why what U.S. beef really is and what it isn't, because there's a lot of mislabeling out there that confuses the consumers. Correct?
You're absolutely right. And I want consumers to know you need to, number one, if you really want a quality piece of meat, you need to buy from local farmers and ranchers in your area. And if you need help finding them, you can email us at the triplecrownsteakchallenge.com, and we will send you farmers and ranchers in your area, both Angus breeders and Wagyu breeders, because we want you to have an experience of the best beef in the U.S. And one thing that really upsets me is that, let's just say China, for instance, can ship beef to the U.S. in a container. They come across go a long way. And when it gets here, and by the way, other countries do use human excrement for fertilizer on their pastures. That is a known fact. And so, the beef is raised totally different than it is here in the U.S. And so that beef is then given to a processor, a USA processor. Once that processor gets that beef, if he cuts it up, he can package it as USA beef. It's crazy because that's why when you go to the meat counter you never see beef from India, China, but Japan will label theirs because they're known to have an excellent product. So yes, that's, of course, they're going to label that. But
Yeah.
I'm just saying, you should be buying from USA ranchers and farmers no matter where you live or what you do, because you're going to get a better product, and you're going to get a product that has less contamination, even if you find out how they are feeding. And most people that are selling beef themselves, especially Wagyu breeders and vegetables, farmers that raise small farms that raise their own vegetables, are very conscientious about what they do. And you can ask them, do you use pesticides? Do you spray your fields with pesticides? If they do and that doesn't suit you, then I know breeders that don't. So, contact us and let us get you in touch with USA beef producers that really have quality beef. Because I think this is going to be a wave of the future, as many calls as I get. For people wanting to know, well, what do they feed? Well, I know this breeder. He's had his meat tested with the Triple Crown. I can tell you where they ranked. He does really good. They have great beef. They're reasonable. I'll give them 2 or 3 names, of
Yeah.
breeders. And we put out a list of people that enter. Now, one thing I want to tell you, in the beginning, when people, if they want to follow the Triple Crown, because this year I just bought a GoPro to do video live stream. So, we're going to show people the meat, but the meat is going to have a number. It's all anonymous until the end when we get the winner. So don't be afraid to send your meat in and think we're going to publish, that you were, where your rank was, because we're going to do your testing and give you your results, and you're going to learn a lot about your meat. And, it's all anonymous. The only thing that we publish are the top five and the grand and the reserve in both, you know, in the full blood Wagyu category, which is 100%, in the F1s percentage categories, and also Angus. We have a separate competition for Angus beef, and
Okay.
I mean you can learn where great beef is through the Triple Crown, no problem.
And and when people when they think about, oh, I got to go to a rancher, sometimes it can be overwhelming for some people. Like, I don't know any ranchers, I don't know how to get out there, I don't have time. But what I'm noticing is a lot of ranchers nowadays have boxes, have butcher boxes and things like that. They're making it a lot easier to get to the
Yeah,
consumer
you just
because
go
they
to
have.
it on your computer. You don't have to go anywhere. It's like ordering from Walmart,
Exactly, and that's really important because
order online.
it's hard, it's hard to get out somewhere and I got to go and pick up some beef. No, like so many of these guys are doing it the right way, straight to consumer, because they know that's what a lot of people want, and that's the wave of the future, and that's going to be really exciting to be able to just do that, to go to Triple Crown and check out somebody locally to me that I can just go online and order a box from and get some really really well raised beef that's been tested. I mean, that's amazing.
Right. And I want to tell the consumer, just from my standpoint, and I know a lot of breeders, and we could buy cheaper feed and make more money, but we don't, because our whole being, the whole reason we have Wagyu is because we're wanting to produce a higher quality product. And some guys out there and women are really good at it, and I want people to know how great they are. So I hope more people will tune in to the Triple Crown, and we stay, connected, and you come out and be a part of it and see how professional everything is done. And the testing, it's not done by a person. It's computers, and it's generated algorithms, and it's state of the art equipment. I mean, you are really getting a piece of meat that has been through the ringer. And I have to give it to the breeders that have the guts to send their meat in to find out what they're actually producing and how good their feed program is doing. I mean, we're spending a tremendous amount of money on feed, and of course, it hasn't been cheap the last few years. And so you want to be able to see where that what that feed is, producing, and your fatty acids and your overall tenderness and taste, and your genetics. You want to see if that bull really is all that, or that female, and see what they're doing. And so, same way with Angus, they want to see that too. They want to see what's producing their better carcasses. And so, this is a great way to gain knowledge about your program as a breeder, and to let consumers know, if I go, I go through the Triple Crown. Here's what I feed. This is the beef we have. Try it. You're gonna love it.
Yeah, it's that real transparency.
Mm-hmm.
That's important because, like I said, we talk to people about Wagyu all day long, and a lot of them now are educated and understand it. But there's still a lot of people that come in even to our butcher shop and say, "Oh no, that's not real Wagyu," or "I don't like it," or "It's too expensive." There's so many misconceptions about it that it blows my mind, that because we have this data now.
Well, yeah, Evan, and I do know that the labeling has been a problem, because
Yes.
I've gone, part of the Triple Crown, what I do is I go and I buy beef from other countries. I buy beef in the markets like Costco and other, markets that sell Wagyu, and boutique butcher shops, and I'll purchase their beef, and I'll DNA it, and it doesn't always come back full blood, And so I go back and I say, look, I'm not here to, I'm not going to advertise this or anything, but do you realize that you're advertising 100% and it's only less than F1 or something like that,
Yeah.
and it's not really great beef. And the people that purchase it, they didn't even know,
They
they're
don't.
not even aware of what it is. But I'll tell you, on some of the packages, if you'll read the fine print, it'll say this is a percentage product, on the back of it. And when you go to a restaurant, you should just ask, is this 100% Wagyu or is this percentage Wagyu? And you'll find out. And there's great, I mean, I love it all. There's great percentage Wagyu and great full blood.
Of
So,
course. We
it's
just want to know what's what, right?
what you want to know what you're paying for.
Yeah.
And it's great beef no matter what, because like I said before, at F1, which is 50% of something and 50% Wagyu, it's usually Angus. But they have Hereford, they have Charolais, they're it's so I don't want to always use the term Angus for F1 because it's not, you know. And one guy that wins consistently in our Triple Crown, he has Herefords and Crosses and Baldies, and he
Wow.
just got a good feed program and good mamas.
Yeah.
That's what's putting
That
his
helps.
feed up there, and that's another thing that I will say this. So when people say the Wagyu, especially the blacks, don't look um, as big or they're skinny or this or that. Most people don't know this, but Japan never allowed black cattle to have babies naturally. They,
Really?
yeah, they did all embryos with over the 1 million dairy cattle they had. So black Wagyu were never encouraged to have a lot of milk, to have large teats and to, have large bags. So when they came to the US, I think that was a problem that breeders didn't realize that those babies need more milk. And those babies will go to different cows. A Wagyu baby, a black Wagyu baby, a baby that's not getting enough milk will go to other mothers. And if there's if there's dairy cows mixed in with the herd and they've got a lot of milk, they'll get on that dairy cow and get what they need. That's how they survive. So,
Yeah, so
um,
that's interesting because I did hear that that is one of the arguments against Wagyu is that they're really hard to breed, that they don't do it naturally. But in Japan, you're saying that they didn't, but over in the United States, they breed them naturally for the most part.
yeah, they breed them like regular cattle, and they're not regular cattle.
Okay, well, let's talk about it since you raised red and black,
And
correct?
black, yeah, and red, black. I cross them.
And you see, I want to talk about that. So we just talked to some. I've been talking to a lot of people about akaushi because I've never had akaushi, the red. So I am very excited to try it, and I know it's different. So you want to talk about some of the differences and similarities between the Japanese red and the Japanese black?
Yeah, so we can, and actually going about the little calves can go right into it because, the blacks have been touted as not being as large as the reds, which they're not. The reds generally have more weight, than the blacks do. And so with the reds, you get an animal that you can harvest earlier and you don't have to keep as long. Uh, so
Okay.
that that it's about money. And so also, and you and I have discussed this. So before, um most of the cattle in the US, all of the cattle in the US were based on pounds. Everything's by the pound. So there was always a big push to fatten them up and get them to harvest as quick as you could because you got paid by the pound, not by the quality of the carcass. But when Wagyu breeders came into the picture, they were about the quality of the carcass. And I'm not saying that Angus breeders weren't, but Angus breeders agree with me too that yes, it's always been about the pound, the pounds on the ground and the pounds at the scale. So, So the reds can contribute to getting you to those pounds quicker. But now, I've also been breeding for a long time, and phenotypically, I have had blacks to mature at the same rate as my reds, but that is not typical. That is, kind of not typical to say it like that. But now, as far as the eating quality, the reds are very good. The black is good. I've done, tests on both. I'm hoping this year to start doing some more testing on reds where I can get, a little bit more. It's hard for me when I go to a packing house because once the hide's off, it's difficult. And if breeders don't tell me, hey, I'm doing 20, 30 reds, 50 reds, 100 reds, can I want to go and get that data, but there just haven't been that many, opportunities to separate the entries, except in the Triple Crown, you do have to put whether it's red or black, and I have that. But if I'm going to make a statement that reds are better than blacks, I want to have I want to have thousands of carcasses that I've researched, both red and black. So I'm not quite there yet on that. But they have good fatty acid profiles. Blacks have good fatty acid profiles. Wagyu in general have good fatty acid profiles, and F1s are above regular cattle in their healthy fats too. So, I mean, I can tell you that from my data, you know. But I'm not yet at the point where I can say one is better than the other. Now, if you're looking at it from a different standpoint, not just the carcass merit, um, and you go by if you can get that weight to harvest the quickest, the introduction of reds into your program will do that for you.
See,
Red cattle do get to their weights quicker. I mean, you know, and but now the what the carcass quality is going to be, I gosh, you put me in a really bad spot here. But I'm a red breeder,
oh,
but I will say, I will just say this that I'm a red breeder, and
mhm,
you know, I can't say that reds are better than blacks. I can say that if you cross the red and you get the size and the phenotype, that good distribution of muscle, and you cross it with the black that is typically finer and
mhm,
more what we call fancy type, and has well, now I haven't graded, but see, I haven't graded that many red carcasses as I have black to really make I don't want to say one way or the other because I don't have that much data on
yeah.
both. I have more black data than I do red. So,
That's Hey, that's great though that you are so about the data that you can't even make that. You probably have some data and you could probably tell us something.
I,
But
you know,
I love
I
that.
will tell you this. We are right now studying the muscle fiber structure difference between reds and black. And there is a difference in the structure of muscle fiber. So, and there is a difference in the distribution of the fat layer in between the muscle fiber. Um, but here's another thing when we're talking about differences. Yes, I can say there's a difference, but is it okay? So I can say without a doubt and done testing on this that there is a difference in the muscle fiber structure in reds and blacks. And the reds are not as fine a structure as blacks are. But when I put two steaks in front of two Wagyu breeders, um, or four. I think there were six when we did this. And I said, tell me which one's red and tells me which one's black. Nobody could do it. So
Yeah. Mm,
you see what I'm
yeah.
saying? You when you're touting that something's better, it needs to be significantly better. Significantly better. And that's where I can say that Wagyu cattle are significantly higher in healthy fats. Yes, that I can say it's a healthier meat. I can say that and prove it with 7 years of data. But if you break that down, what I can't say is that omega 3s and 6s, which I've heard, and I know you've heard, are equal to salmon. That I can say is not true because there isn't you see, the omegas in beef are plant based, whereas fish, it's more to uptake. It's a stronger, better omega 3. So, and it's not significant. It's not significant enough to say that if you eat this meat, you get as good omegas as you do from a piece of salmon, because my studies are not showing you know, salmon still, if you want the omegas, is the better
Most.
choice. Yeah. But if you want a heart healthy uh, piece of meat, then you need to choose Wagyu, either whatever form, F1 up, because anything with Wagyu in it, it becomes a better meat. No.
I love that. You're totally right. Oh my gosh. Yes, I know, I know. And I love that though. I love that the data shows the heart healthiness, because it's especially when you're talking about that versus like a chicken or even fish, like my mother, I would say this, my mother tells me to eat the Mediterranean diet, more chicken, more fish. And I'm like, well, I eat very well raised beef and very well raised Wagyu beef. And so there's a lot of misconceptions out there that, oh, red meat gives you this or that and it's terrible for you, so you need to eat chicken or beef, right? So what? Why would somebody be healthier eating maybe a well raised Wagyu beef versus chicken or your grocery store chicken or salmon?
Don't get me started on chicken, because
I want to.
made a fool out of myself at Purdue Research Institute. I was talking to the chemist there, and he's like, "You want me to test this stuff? How am I going to? I wanted antibiotics, hormones, and like 150 chemicals of concern, which that's really not that bad, because once you're testing for glyphosate, it's like a spread category. It's not that hard once you get it tested, but." I said, "What do you mean, how you going to do it? Just do it like the chicken people do it, like the poultry industry." And he goes, "Really? Is that what you're telling me to do, like the poultry industry?" I said, "Yeah, just do it like the poultry people." I said, "I see it labeled no hormones, no antibiotics all over the store, and they charge a lot more. I buy that, no hormone." And he goes, "Desi," he said, "they don't test that." He said, "You know how they get that designation?" I said, "How?" He goes, "They check a box on a piece of paper that says that they don't use hormones and antibiotics." And I'm like, "You're kidding me. I've been paying all that money for a checked box." Oh my goodness. I felt like, wow, you really did good. And
Purdue University.
not the university, the research institute. I was talking to them. And so I said, "Oh, my bad. That was so not good of me to think it was going to be so easy." So then I got to looking, and how many chickens do you think we eat a year? Broilers are slaughtered in the US in a year.
In a year,
In
the
the
whole
US.
U.S.
Yeah, in the US, yeah.
Oh my God, 5 billion, way more.
5 billion are
Wow.
slaughtered annually in the US. That's like 25 million chickens a day. And guess how many are tested by the
For,
US
for
for
by the USDA.
for bad stuff,
How many?
like chemicals and things like Well, in 2024, they tested 9,600.
That's
So, I mean, but I'm not saying that there's a fault with the USDA. It's just overwhelming, and
yeah.
we need as Americans to come up with a better system to ensure that we're getting healthy, food, and that we're eating things that are not contaminated. Because I will tell you this, when I first started ranching, I used the chemicals everybody told me to use. They were, but now I did pay more and use the graze on and chemicals that they say are good for cattle to graze on. But they were also telling me to spray my fence lines with Roundup, and all this stuff, which, that's like the big cancer causer. And then when I found out how Roundup leached into my pasture, how when it rained, it all went downhill, you know how that goes. I'm like, oh my God, I've contaminated my pasture. So, I'm going back. This is my third year trying to rebuild and regenerate, back to natural. I mean, we use all our own manure and for stuff like that. We spread it, try to go the natural route. And I mean, but then you got weeds you got to deal with, and so then you got to cut and cut and cut. You have to try to do it naturally, and it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, and I want the consumers to know that just like you have to pay more for organic food in the grocery stores, it costs farmers and ranchers an arm and a leg to use products that they say are good and healthy for cattle, to graze on and to do, and not use those weed killers and things like that. So you really need to support ranchers, USA ranchers and farmers that grow, your food, because it costs a lot more for them to produce a healthy carcass. It really does. It costs a lot more. Twice as much, more than twice, if you look at the prices of those products that we have to purchase to do things right. And the
Do
grain.
you think
I've lived that. I'm living that right now. So, yeah. And I do want to tell you, I have a friend that's a vegetarian. Yes, she's still my friend, but she was always giving me that. Anna, you eat meat, you're gonna get this or that. And I said, just stop right there. I just want to say this. More people in the US get sick from contaminated produce than from meat. And the contamination in the produce has the uptake of pesticides, lead, cadmium, all of those things that are directly in the ground. Because, see, vegetarians, they're a primary consumer of that product. Whereas when you eat meat, if an animal eats grass or forage and then it gets, distributed, that's a secondary uptake. So we're protected even if it's not the best of pasture. So, I just want to let people know that that's why you need to buy from your USA farmers and stop buying stuff labeled from Argentina and wherever, Peru or buy USA. Buy USA. I'm just going to
to buy,
a
buy real USA?
born,
Hmm.
bred, born, and raised in the USA. Same with
Yeah,
plants. You want the seed that was planted in the USA and harvested in the USA for your vegetables and tomatoes and all that good stuff. They're better from a market than they are in the grocery store after they've been shipped,
yeah.
and picked
Just
half ripe and then shipped over here. Buy
and
USA. This is
right.
the country.
It's just the regulations. I mean, we have regulations that are much better
Oh
than
yeah.
most, right?
Yeah, and I read somewhere where when you get a strawberry from another country, it has, and probably ours aren't, if you don't buy organic, I don't know, but I can't say, but I think there's a movement now for people to do regenerative farming, and I'm real happy about that because let's face it, we have way too high a cancer rate and way too many weird things going on, too many young people getting ill, illnesses that we've never had before. And, you need to stop buying things that you don't know how it was raised. You need to start, you go and pay attention when you go to buy a car. You spend a lot of time examining that vehicle and doing Carfax or whatever and finding out where it came from and what kind of life it had. You need to do the same about what you put in your body. You know what I'm saying? And USA farmers and ranchers, we have some great conscientious farmers and ranchers here in the U.S. We do.
And it's funny. I always kind of joke and say when you bring your like a cat or a dog to the vet, the first thing they ask is, "What are you feeding it?" Let's change the feed. Let's get you on something a little healthier,
A little healthier and
right? But we don't think that way at all.
well, people
We're like,
feed
"No,
their kids like processed crap, but then go buy $100 bag of dog food.
yeah, yeah." It's
I told my friend that's your child. Look what you bought for your dog, and you let them eat chicken nuggets that are not even made from real.
from real meat. Oh,
What's going on in the U.S.? Come on, folks.
oh, I know, and it is unfortunate because a lot of those products are cheaper. So a lot of people, some people don't have the opportunity to do it.
Yeah,
So
well, I don't know about that.
yeah, you can make it work.
You can make it work. You can find a way to get healthy products, and I think there's just a trend now, and consumers want healthy products, but I want consumers to understand too that to raise that healthy product, we are just paying out the yazoo for the having to buy particular sprays and things to use to keep our cattle safe and healthy.
And so, real quick, probably one of the last topics I know you got to probably jet, but I wanted to ask about regenerative. We kind of started to talk about regenerative farming. I wanted to get your thoughts on why more people aren't making that switch, how difficult that switch is to just pull and do. And oh, we're regenerative now. It doesn't happen overnight,
It's not
obviously.
happen
So,
overnight.
how do you see the U.S. farm system changing to something more regenerative?
What I would like to see is the USDA to help us. Actually, in the US, we have a lot of fields that are I just call it poisoned, um, because we believed what we were told. And now research, as we are doing research, it's kind of like, I'm not going to get into that. I'm not going to mention vaccines or anything, but as we are doing research, we are finding out that there are things that just weren't what we were told. And, so you had people that really want to do right, but then they are given all these things, and there's so much false information out there. It's hard to, pick apart the truth from what's false. But I think they should help farmers and ranchers to regenerate their farms and maybe do, better organic style agriculture. And I want to bring this up too, because I think you and I talked about this before. But so a long time ago, when people grew corn, we'll just use corn because everybody knows corn. They had cornfields. You saw them. It was October, and then you have harvest season, and they harvest the corn, and you always look for the good sweet corn, and you saw the stalks in the field, and then they tilled the stalks in the field and waited, and the fields laid in wait for the next growing season, and then they seeded and grew, the next crop. Well, now that doesn't happen anymore. It's all about the money. They take up those stalks of corn, they grind them up into feed for something else, and then they put these chemicals on the ground to give it nutrient, and then they plant something else there, so that they can maximize the money from this field. But the truth is, in the years they've been doing that, the research shows, and you can look this up, you can Google it, it's true, that we have lost a major portion of nutritional value of those foods that are grown on those fields. So, it's, you know, you are what you eat, and you can't, at some point money's got to stop being the uh you know you got to stop being the hell all. You got to think about your land and be good stewards of your land and care about what you produce. And I think that's why I love Wagyu breeders so much, because they really care. And there are Angus breeders too that are contacting me. It's there's good people in everything. And then there's people that don't care. They'll spray Roundup. They don't care, and they'll take a sick cow to market, and it'll go get butchered, and it was ill when it got harvested. I mean, there's always, and they don't. Oh, another thing, they don't go the dates on the contamination levels when they use veterinary medications. I mean,
Yeah.
there's always going to be people that only care about making the money. And that's the problem. So to combat that, you need to buy from American ranchers and farmers that raise a great product and are conscientious about what they do.
And real quick on the fields and growing the vegetables, is that more utilizing the land to make money? Is that more because it's really hard to make money farming these days, and we have to feed more people? Is it
No,
some of that?
I'll tell you why it's really hard. Because the U.S. lets every country in the world send in everything they have, and they pay their workers $10 a day, and we can't do that. And so I'll give you a good example, not related to cattle, so I don't get in trouble with anybody. But shrimping industry, for instance, in Biola Battery, Pensacola, Florida, all those areas along the Gulf Coast that shrimp. They allowed Ecuador to come in and sell it with no quota, as many shrimp as they want, and they pay their workers $10 a day. I mean, and we got to go by fuels. We have to buy efficient fuels. They got to get diesel that's rated a certain rate for pollution and all that, and then they have to pay their workers a fair wage. You can't compete with a $10 day shrimp. That's why now you see shrimp from India, shrimp from Ecuador, shrimp. You know, it's really a disservice to not have quotas on what comes. They should let you buy USA. And you know what? If you have to pay $1 or two more, aren't you happy that your people are getting a good wage and good money for a great product? I mean, at some point in time, the cheapest thing just can't be good for you. That's all there is to it. And that's my story.
That's good. No, that's I love it. I feel like you're gonna be a reoccurring guest on this podcast. We're gonna have to keep talking about so much, and then we'll do a recap after the Triple Crown. So real quick, let's talk about the Triple Crown, when it is, what's happening, and then and where people can find you at.
Okay, so we have Steak Week. I kind of got that from Shark Week. You have to send your
Yeah.
steaks in the 15th to UC Davis, and go to triplecrownsteakchallenge.com, and all the shipping information's there. And if you have a problem, just call me. I have 2 or 3 people uh, waiting for you to help you. If you have problems with shipping, or you want to know about shipping. And I want to say this. So this year, they have allowed us, because so many people are using, we didn't talk about this, Wagyu tallow products. There's a lot of tallow that people are cooking their potatoes in, and things like that. And it's become a big thing with the Wagyu breed, and also cosmetics, because it's such a pure product. And so this year we're going to do it, no extra charge, no charge at all. free. We're going to evaluate your tallow and give you your melting point of fat. So to really know the better tallow, we'd like you to send in a little bit of kidney fat, because kidney fat is much more rich in the healthy fats than subcutaneous fat, the fat on the outside. So if our entrance will send in about a finger size sample of the kidney fat frozen in a bag labeled, and a sample of your subcutaneous fat labeled, we will let you know how healthy that fat is and give you a melting point of fat rating on it. So, hey, that'd be great for your restaurant to have the best melting point of fat tallow with those potatoes. That's really good. Yeah,
Good.
yeah.
Hey.
So we're going to do that and help our breeders be able to use the information and the Triple Crown logo to show that they've been rated for their fat content and the healthy benefits of their tallow products as well.
So when will the results be out?
Well, it takes a long time, but I'm going to be there as we catalog and get it going. And then it'll probably be in November. It takes a good while, to get everything done and get all the scores tallied up per category. So, we need some time, but it'll be out, and it'll be out before the end of the year. So we'll get that done. We'll get those.
And where do they find those? Where do they find that at?
We make a big announcement and we send it out and we make a big deal about it, and we even publish a little magazine with the winners and all about
Nice.
the top 5 and the whole 9 yards, and we show pictures of the steaks and show pictures of the proud sire and dam of that steak, and it's a nice
And that's like the triplecrownsteak.com, or is that the right site?
triplecrownsteakchallenge.com.
Triplecrownsteakchallenge.com.
Oh, and it's the only one in the world that does this much testing on a piece of meat. So
Love it.
I'm happy. I'm happy we do that.
Well, thank you, Desi, with all your data. We got to link up. Well, I know hopefully we'll link up during the steak week, and then we'll have to do a little recap after the challenge and talk about it.
Definitely, yeah. Let's talk about the winners. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah,
I think that'd be a lot of fun. Yeah, and prove to people how great this Wagyu beef is.
right.
I love it. Thank you for being such a Wagyu beef and USA beef champion. You have been doing it. I love it. I love it. And thanks for making our job easier with all this testing. I can't wait to really dive into it and have some of that to show people who question, the heart healthy beef aspect of Wagyu. I think that's so important.
Right.
And I love
right. Yes. Well,
it. Yeah.
thank you for having me, and thank you, everybody. Bye.
Well, we'll talk to you soon, Desi. Thanks.
Bye bye.
Bye.